Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. Each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Thank you for joining me today here on Point of View. We're going to spend some time in this first hour today talking about spiritual ministry that takes place within your business. And this is part of an organization called Marketplace Ministries. We've talked about it before on this program, but a new book out called Chaplain, written by Gil Stricklin. He is the founder, chairman, and CEO of Marketplace Ministries, an individual that is a graduate of Baylor University, as well as served in the Chaplain Corps, worked with Dr. Billy Graham and with Texas Baptist, and then decided to start this ministry, and it has spread really worldwide, but certainly nationwide, as we'll be talking about today, in terms of so many different states. And I think you are going to enjoy the conversation and learn a little bit more about what could even happen in your own place of business. So Gil Stricklin, thank you for joining us today here on Point of View.
Well, Kerby, thank you, sir. It's a joy to be with you and to be a part of your program. It's really a privilege. We've always admired Point of View, and you've had some great guests on here. I'm just privileged to be with you today.
Well, certainly great to have you here. We've had Dick DeWitt on the program in the past when he first joined with you. And so you have just an incredible group of individuals that are very talented. And as people get into the book, they'll learn a little bit more about that. But before we get into all the ways in which I think even our listeners could participate through Marketplace Ministries, let's talk about some of this vision that you had. And I guess I go back to when you were with the Texas Baptist and you were with Dr. W.A. Criswell, trying to decide whether or not you need to pursue this ministry. And he puts his arm around you and says, lad. I think at the time you were, 40 years of age?
49, yeah.
I mean, everybody was a lad to Dr. W.A. Criswell. But nevertheless, he gave you the advice to wait on the Lord. But shortly thereafter, you started, and he said he would make the first gift to that organization. And so out of this very significant beginning, you have this incredible organization. So share a little bit about that.
Well,
vision.
it was a long time coming, because my wife and I, my wife Ann, that we've been married since 1958, we really prayed and thought about this and looked at it. And the idea really came from my background in the military. As an Army chaplain, I knew how to take care of people who wore green uniforms. But I didn't know if you could take that same concept of caring for people in the workplace and move it to corporate America. So it was at that time that my wife suggested I go talk to my pastor. So I went to see W.A. Criswell, and it was about a 3 or 4 minute meeting. It didn't take long, because he got up behind his desk, walked around there, and as you said, put his arm around my shoulder and said, lad, how can the pastor help you? So I told him I was trying to make this decision whether we ought to go out and try to begin something like this. And he said, oh, that's very easy. That's very easy. Psalms 27:14, wait patiently on the Lord. Be strong and take heart, and wait patiently on the Lord. He said, son, just wait patiently on the Lord. That's all you need to do. He turned around and walked around his desk, and I realized the meeting was over.
It was over.
So I turned and walked through the door, reached out to take the handle to open the door, and I hear him say, lad, and I turned around and I said, yes, Dr. Criswell. He said, lad, he said, if God leads you to do this, he said, I want to be your first supporter. I'll give you $5,000.
Well, that's a pretty good endorsement, wasn't it? It's a great story of nothing else. And I think if anybody ever visits your corporate headquarters, which I have, and I want to go back there again, they'll see that certainly you've had an expansive ministry, but you not only minister in the kind of the typical businesses and corporations, but you also minister to those in the railroads. And that goes all the way back to something I suspected but didn't know until I read your book. And that is, your dad was a railroad man, the Katy Railroad, and you've always had a very soft spot in your heart for those people in the railroads.
Well, that's exactly right. And of course, growing up in a railroad family, you became a railroader. So I've worked for three back then in the 50s and 60s. They were major railroads. Today, there's only 7 major railroads in the United States. But back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, there were as many as 300 railroads in the United States. And so, my background is that I've helped build boxcars. I've helped put up signal posts when they had Morse code before we had the satellite for directing trains and traffic. I've worked on a train crew as a brakeman, working for the Burlington Northern Rock Island Railroad. And so I've spent several years in railroading. And so once, kind of like a Marine, once a railroader, always a railroader.
Well, it's kind of fun. And I've done some of that with H.O. Scale, but not what you've done. But anyway, certainly we share that in common as well. But this is, I think, just an incredible ministry that you have pulled together, because you learned early on when you began to talk to some of these individuals that ran various businesses and corporations that if the chaplain was the person that wrote the checks, it's probably unlikely that they would come in with their spiritual or physical or emotional problems. And so what you provide for many of these organizations is an opportunity to have a chaplain that can be there and to provide so many ministry needs that a typical corporation or business can't even consider trying to provide.
Well, that's very, very true. And initially, 30 years ago when this ministry started, there weren't many people doing this.
Yeah.
Today there are a few. But back then, most businessmen said this will not work. You can't be religious in your marketplace. You're going to get sued. You're going to get businesses sued. People are going to be offended. You're going to use religious harassment. It just will not work. And I heard that for the first couple of months as I talked to a lot of businessmen, until finally I found one that said, I've tried to be a chaplain for 20 years, but he said, as you just described, I write all the checks, I hire and fire people. And he said, nobody walks through my door in my office and tell me that they're getting ready to get a divorce because they're having an affair and they don't know how to get out of it. They don't tell me that their kid's on drugs. They don't tell me all these problems. And so maybe they'll tell a chaplain, so why don't you come be my chaplain in my company? And that's really how it started, with just one company and 150 workers.
Well, and you got that great story. And like I said, he referred to you as preacher, and that wasn't necessarily a term of affection, I guess. But nevertheless, like I said, if he's writing the checks, it's probably not going to happen. But as an outsider coming in and providing some of that spiritual counsel, very important. And when we come back from the break, I want to talk a little bit about some of the functions, because, of course, you certainly also were at Arlington Cemetery for quite a while and understand how important it is to conduct a proper funeral. I loved what one woman said to you after you had done this one particular funeral. Of course, you worked really hard to try to learn everybody's story. As you saluted as they left, she said, he must have been your closest friend, and you hardly even knew him at all. So this is a real ministry that is out there, and I wanted to let you know about more about what Marketplace Ministries is doing. So you can go to our website, pointofview.net. The first link there is to Marketplace Ministries, or you can just go to marketplaceministries.com. There's a very good video there that Gil Stricklin does. There's some more information about that. But I did want to encourage some of you that maybe are in a business right now that said, we really could use a chaplain. We really could use somebody that could provide some spiritual input, provide some counseling, and really provide something that is not going to ever be provided by the business or corporation. So we wanted to spend some time talking about that today and giving you a chance a little bit later to ask some of your questions and make some of your comments. And then at the very back of your book, you've got some great spiritual principles. Want to get into some of those 7 spiritual wisdom principles, nuggets of wisdom. So we have a lot to cover in this hour, but if you'd like to join us at any point, feel free to give us a call, 1-800-351-1212. We'll be back with Gil Stricklin and Marketplace Ministries right after this.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
Is abstinence education a failure? One would certainly think so, looking at some of the statistics being printed in various newspapers. But anyone willing to dig deeper will find that these statistics are sometimes misleading. First, let's look at the overall trend. During the 1970s and 80s, comprehensive sex education was being introduced into the schools. The proponents talked about condoms and so-called safe sex. What happened during that period? Well, teen sexual activity rose and pregnancy and abortion rates reached all-time highs. In the 1990s, abstinence groups began to present a different message. The Centers for Disease Control found that sexual activity rates of high school students declined and teen abortion rates dropped over 50%. Of course, it is possible to argue that this overall correlation may not be connected, so let's look more closely at some of the numbers used to argue that abstinence education does not work. Opponents of abstinence education nearly always refer to teen birth rates rather than teen pregnancy rates. What is missing in these comparisons are teen abortions, which mask the real impact of abstinence education. Let's compare two states of similar size, Texas and New York. The state of Texas has many more teen births than the state of New York. And opponents of abstinence education use this to show that that state that does not emphasize abstinence education, New York, is doing better than the state that does, Texas. But there's something missing from these comparisons, teen abortions. In New York, 56% of pregnant teens abort their babies, while only 16% of Texas teens do so. When you compare teen pregnancy rates rather than teen birth rates, you get a much more accurate picture. What you discover is that abstinence education is working. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
At 17,000 feet on Mount Ararat lies a mystery, Finding Noah, in theaters one night only, October 8th. More information at findingnoah.com.
You're listening to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
Privileged to have in studio with us today Gil Stricklin as we talk about Marketplace Ministries. And if you'd like to join our conversation, 1-800-351-1212. Perhaps some of you even have a testimony. Maybe you have a chaplain with Marketplace Ministries that comes to your place of work. We'd love to hear from you. 1-800-351-1212. We'll get to some of those phone calls a little bit later. And I might mention, Gil, for just a minute, you used to work with the Billy Graham organization. And recently we did an interview with Cliff Barrows. And I saw a picture of you with Cliff in this. And even this weekend, a lot of people getting geared up from the interview we just did the other day with Greg Laurie, because these evangelistic crusades, very important. And for just a minute, I'd love you to share about that, because you've worked with Dr. Graham, even sent you to London. But when he did so, when he sent you to England, he first called you and you thought, oh boy, what am I going to say to Dr. Graham here? And then he said, I'm going to give you a really tough assignment, but I know you can do it. But you need to get on your knees and pray every day, because dealing with the British media, as we all now know, it was pretty significant. So Dr. Graham gave you a tough assignment, but you packed up your family and went to England.
Well, that's exactly right. That was in 1965, and I'll never forget that evening when he called me into his quarters before the service began in Greenville, South Carolina. And they had, motioned me to sit down, so I sat down there in his quarters, and he began to walk back and forth in front of me and talking about the upcoming crusade in England. And then he pointed that long index finger at me when he said, I want you to go there and develop our relationship with the press. And that's when he said, and you better be on your knees every day, because only by God's grace and God's help can you do this job. And that was a wonderful opportunity. I've visited 90 foreign countries. I traveled 1.5 million miles with Dr. Graham during that time. I only spent 5 years there. Dr. Graham has spent 55 years, and now at 95 is still doing all he can in the kingdom's work. He's a great man. There was only one perfect man, and it wasn't Dr. Graham, and it wasn't you or me, but he was a great man. He is a great man, and yes. I highly respect him. I was, for 5 years, as a young man, I went there in my early 30s, and the guys around him had been with him, for 15 years before I got there. But because of my work, I was with him every day. And with New York Times or Chicago Tribune or anybody that wanted something from him, from the media, it came through me. So I had the privilege of getting to know Dr. M. And after sitting in on over 200 press conferences, whatever question you asked, I could answer it as Billy Graham because I'd heard it so many times. I knew what he would say. It was a great experience, and I think it certainly helped develop me as a person spiritually, but also helped develop me experientially in dealing with people. It was a great experience. I've heard Dr. Graham preach 313 times live in a crusade environment, or in a church, or at Oxford, or wherever we were worldwide. And he always was very simple, very pointed, and very compelling to give your life to Christ. And that was exciting. It's still exciting.
Well, and I see a lot of the influence of Dr. Graham on your own ministry. First of all, the emphasis on integrity, which certainly anybody that knows Gil Stricklin knows, but also just the, you mentioned it in passing, and I want to come back to it, the incredible continuity. I mean, he had, of course, you also have a picture here of you and Bev Shea, as well as Cliff Barrows, and go down the list of those. And then later on in your book, I don't know if you intended this, but you have pictures of individuals that have been in your ministry for a long time as well. Mm-hmm. There is something about ministries where you have the same team of people who are dedicated to that vision and keep that vision, and you certainly have been a faithful follower of that and use some of those principles from the Graham organization.
Well, we certainly, I believe that's very true, and maybe that was the reason I was there for those 5 years. The point that you already pointed out, but integrity, being very open. If you want to know anything about our organization, anything about the money or anything else, you either go online for ECFA and find it, or you can call us and we'll send it to you. There is total openness, exactly the money that's raised. And, of course, we have a business model, so we don't raise a whole lot of money as far as contribution goes. Sure. And but the organizational structure and the way Mr. Graham organized his ministry, we've tried to take some of those same principles. And the concept that you just shared there a moment ago, Kerby, I think is very vital. Someone has said the greatest evidence of God's blessings on Marketplace Ministries are the people he has sent to work with us. And so we have a man that's been there. The second guy we ever hired is still there. He's got a PhD from Baylor University, Dan Truitt, and he's been there 29 years with us. Yeah. And then we have a lot of other people that have been there 15 or 20 years. And, you gave me the title a while ago of founder. I don't accept that title because I believe God was a founder, and I just laugh and say I was the first employee and the first chaplain. But the Lord was the one that founded this ministry, and it's been exciting to see what he has done over all these years.
Let's talk about what you do, because I certainly was illustrating that for just a minute ago when I talked about having done those funerals at Arlington Cemetery. And it does seem to me that one very vital ministry of Marketplace Ministries is that every company, every business, sooner or later loses somebody through death, if not the actual employee, a family member. And those are the times when the CEO, the president, the executive director says, now what are we going to do? I really want to do something for them. And I think that's one of the greatest ministries. It's not the only one, but one of the greatest ministries is you step in at a time when sometimes businesses and corporations say, we don't need any of those religious people. As soon as they have a funeral, or they've got a death in the family, or they've got somebody in the hospital with maybe a terminal disease, They come looking for you, don't they?
Well, that is very, very true. But, the basic thing, Kerby, is that 70% of the American workforce, now listen to this, 70% of the American workforce does not have a relationship with organized religion.
Isn't that amazing?
They're not agnostics. They're not atheists. They're not mad at God. They don't know God. They just sleep in on Sunday morning or go play golf or go bass fishing or, drink an extra cup of coffee and read the paper. But those same people are going to get sick.
Yes.
They're going to have cancer. They're going to die. They're going to go to prison or their loved ones going to prison. So everybody needs a pastor. Everybody needs a minister. Everybody needs a priest. And so a chaplain in the workplace becomes a minister to people who have no minister, and that's 70% of the American workforce. So we do a funeral every day. Now, did you hear that? Every day we do a funeral for people that do not have a pastor. So who do they turn to? They turn to the guy that's been coming by their workstation for the last few weeks or few months, drink a cup of coffee, move on to somebody else, ask about his mother, tell him he's been praying for his mother who is growing old and maybe getting ready to die. All those things that build those relationships and those trust levels between the worker and the chaplain, that they reach out then when there is a need, and whether it's death or whether it's sickness or whether it's a child on drugs or whether it's a marriage that's going through a tough time, whatever it is, to have somebody you can talk to, somebody that will encourage you and that will uplift you and that will help you. We say that chaplains are really good Samaritans. They're people that when life knocks you down and bloodies you up and beats you up, they pick you up and bandage you up and get you back on the road to life again. And they do that from a spiritual base and from an evangelistic base, from a base of sharing the love of God. And that's what we say we do. We share God's love through acts of kindness in the workplace. And we do that without a legal difficulty, not one in all these years.
Isn't that just amazing? We have Kelly Shackelford here tomorrow. He's another Baylor graduate, and he sometimes has to defend people in the marketplace, but you've just never had those legal issues, have you?
It's been amazing. After 30 years and 9 months, we have only had 2 small instances about this program, and nothing ever to do with religious harassment. Not at all. And, it's just amazing to me that we have what we call rules of engagement. The Army has that too.
Yeah, sure.
And that means if you're shot at, you shoot back. But for us, when the employee asks a biblical, spiritual question, that gives us total freedom to answer with a spiritual answer. So consequently, last year, we had the joy of leading nearly 3,000 people to Christ in the workplace without a legal issue.
That's amazing. We need to take a break. When we come back, we will open up the phones to give you a chance to ask a question or make a comment. Perhaps you have had some experience of working with Marketplace Ministries. Perhaps you are saying, I'd like to know a little bit more about this because this would be something I would like to bring into my company. And I will certainly talk about that as well. We do have a nice link to Marketplace Ministries on our website, pointofview.net. After we come back from the break, and we'll also begin to open up the phones. Perhaps you have a comment or a question, 1-800-351-1212, and we'll be back right after this.
This is an on-the-go world, and now wherever you go, Point of View goes with you. Visit the Apple or Google Play Store and download the free Point of View app. You can listen and watch the program live or play it again later. Get Kerby's Viewpoints commentary and click the Take Action link to make a difference in the world. You can also read articles, find a local radio station, and easily contact us with your comments or questions. Again, visit the Apple or Google Play Store today and get the app, the Point of View radio app. And one more thing, if you like it, click that button that says Donate Now and join the team. Point of View and the Point of View app, with you on the go.
At 17,000 feet on Mount Ararat in eastern Turkey.
We see it in every culture. The flood was a common story told, and there was an ark that saved humankind.
Lies a mystery that could change the way we look at the world.
Let's go find an ark.
Presented as a Fathom event, Finding Noah, an adventure of faith.
We knew we were on the brink of what could be the greatest archaeological discovery so far.
Witness The Journey, Finding Noah. One night only, October 8th in theaters nationwide. FindingNoah.com.
Point of View will continue after this. You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Continue our conversation today with Gil Stricklin. If you'd like to join us, 1-800-351-1212. Marketplace Ministries. And Gil, for just a minute, let's, if we can, talk about what this means, because you have full-time chaplains that go into these businesses, and I'd love to at least educate our listeners for just a minute. Maybe they can open a door. Maybe there's a businessman listening right now or a woman working in the corporation saying, this would sure be a good thing for our company or business to have. So what actually isn't involved in all of this?
Yeah, that's a good question and a great answer that comes from that. And that is, not bragging at all, but just sharing that we have nearly 2,900 chaplains.
Wow.
That's 2,900 chaplains. And our concept of caring for employees is an employee care program. We have men that work with men and couples, and ladies work with ladies. So we have over 800 ladies on our staff, and also we have 7 language groups. We match the chaplains to the language groups of the companies. We have in New York, upstate New York, we have a company that has 90% Bosnians. So we have 2 Bosnian chaplains in that company that speak their language. And so all of these things are mixed to support and care for the employee and to help the employee. And there's really 22 great services that we offer. And if you think about a bookend on each end, is that a chaplain is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and 365 days a year. And on the other end of that chaplain is available to help people whatever their need is and whatever their problem is. So they're the DH in business. In American League Baseball, you and I both know that's a designated hitter.
Right.
For us, it's a designated helper. We're the person that they go to when there's a problem. And many times it's confidential. They don't want the boss to know that they're maybe hooked on pornography, or maybe they're got a gambling addiction, or whatever the problem is. And so it's very confidential, that it will never be told what the chaplain is dealing with unless the person that's dealing with that problem tells that. The chaplain will not. And so it's good business. It's great business to take care of people, because if you take care of your people, they'll take care of your profit. So we do, the turnover rate. Just look at turnover rate.
Oh, that's what I was thinking about. Yes.
We went into a Taco Bell, had 65 Taco Bells spread across South Texas, and we went with that company. And at the end of 3 years, their turnover rate had gone from 300% down to 95%. That saved them literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. We laugh and say we work for Taco Bell for free because of the money we save them. And look at higher productivity. If a person is happy in their job, and why wouldn't you want to be happy where you're going to spend 60% of your waking hours, either at work or going to work or getting ready to go to work, coming home from work, bringing work home with you? Why shouldn't you be happy? And so consequently, to deal with issues in the workplace to help people is tremendously important. We've seen health insurance go down, the use of that.
I would believe that.
All of those things that are really just good business principles. The guy didn't have to be an evangelical Christian to have a chaplain. We work for a lot of people that they could not articulate anything to do with spirituality or religious faith, but they do have a concern for their people. They do want to help them. And as a byproduct of that, they have a better company and usually a more profitable company. You don't hire us because to make more money, but by hiring a chaplain and having a program like ours in place, it certainly does strengthen the bottom line.
It just seems that businesses so often are thinking of what they can do to help their employees. Sometimes they'll give them a gym membership. Certainly, of course, they give them health insurance, and certainly they try to give them at least some time for vacation. But some of the most significant problems that individuals face are really seen as distractions for the corporation, because like you said, if they're hooked on drugs or pornography, if they're having a marital relationship, they're going through a divorce, on and on and on, these are just distractions to them, but those are the things that a chaplain can actually address and provide help. Absolutely. And you know what? Most people do not have anybody to turn to. And in the traditional employee assistance program, we call ourselves an employee care program. Yes. We do more than assist. We care for people. But in a typical employee assistance program, only 2 to 8% of the employees will ever use that service. In our program, where we're in the workplace every week, where we're building a friendship with you every week, then anywhere from 50 to 75% of the employees or their family members will use a chaplain in the first year. That's a great difference in usage. Even though we may be a little more cost
a little more costly. By the usage, we're very, very cheap. We're cheaper than a cup of coffee a day for your employees.
So again, Marketplace Ministries, we have a web link there, and I would suspect some of you might want to know a little bit more about bringing that to your own business or corporation. But let me ask a question, Gil, about, you were talking about Bosnians, and it sort of brings up the issue, what about these other religions? We have Buddhists and Hindus and all sorts of different religious faiths. Obviously, you come from a Christian perspective. Nobody's surprised by that. How do you handle that issue?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question, and that's a question that's been asked, in the military as well. And so we handle it the same way we did in the military. We take care of everybody, whether they have a religious faith or whether they don't. Whether they go to church on Sunday or whether they go to Mass on Sunday, it makes no difference to us. We're out there to take care of people, to help people. However, our staff is made up of only evangelical Christians who have signed our statement of faith. We have a statement of faith that spells out exactly what we believe. And so we have a frame there. If you fit inside that frame, then we'll consider hiring you. If you don't, then we don't argue about it. We just will not hire you because you wouldn't feel comfortable with us anyway. So we have the Christians, evangelical Christians, that have a statement of faith and a standard of conduct. We have a standard of conduct, and if you break that standard, if I break that standard before the sun goes down today, you're going to be dismissed from this service. And with God, there is grace, and He will give you second chances, maybe third chances. With us, there is no second chance. If you break a standard of conduct, you're dismissed, and you will not be rehired. You say, how do you handle Muslims or Buddhists or all those other people? Well, we have our staff, which are our employees, those 2,900 people, and then we have a resource staff. A resource staff is made up, and I'm not, I ought to know that, but made up of maybe 200 to 300 people, and they're spread out all over the country where we are. But that would be like a rabbi in a major city, where when we have an employee who's Jewish, and he doesn't go to the synagogue, and he has a child that dies, like happened recently drowned in the backyard swimming pool. We reached out and got our rabbi here in Dallas, Texas, to be involved with that family. So we hired him for that occasion. We had a Buddhist that died in one of our companies, and the wife asked if we would coordinate the funeral. Could we find a Buddhist priest? Well, there's 16 Buddhist priests right here in Dallas, and so we hired one of those people to come in and do that funeral. But she said also, Mr. Lee always liked the company chaplain, and we'd like him to participate. And Kerby, I can't prove it for sure, but you can't prove I'm not right. And that is, it's probably the first time in Dallas that a Buddhist and a Baptist did a funeral together. That's
a pretty good story. But again, those are some real opportunities to bridge some theological gaps. And back to the comment I made, or asked you to make just a minute ago about the 70%. We just have so many people that are disconnected from a local church. And yet those people are real opportunities for evangelism, real opportunities for ministry. And you are saying, we're not going to leave those people behind.
And there's great need. There's just so many needs out there today. You read about it every day in the paper. And I am convinced that if every company had a chaplain, there would not be workplace homicide like we're seeing today, where this gentleman in Oklahoma City the other day, went back and killed one employee and tried to kill another one. If that person had somebody that was interacting with him every week, and when they fired him, that they still reached out to him, they helped him find another job, they helped him deal with the anger and the hate that he had in his heart, I'm convinced that we would not be having workplace homicide the way we do today. But I've also found out that people don't care really a lot about your religion. What they want to know is, can you help me? And secondly, will you help me? And third, are you genuine? Nobody's ever asked me if I'm a Baptist or what I am, but they want to know, can you help me? Will you help me? And are you genuine in that help? And so that's what we do. We reach out to people that have a problem, that need help, and everybody needs a chaplain sometime. It's kind of like a pickup truck. You might not think you want one, but there'll come a time you need one.
That's a great line. We're going to take a break. When we come back, there's some great pearls of wisdom, if you will, nuggets of wisdom that you have in the back part of your book, Chaplain. So I thought we'd mention one or two of those real quickly just before we wind down the interview. But again, if you'd like to know more about Marketplace Ministries, or if you'd like to get a copy of the book by Gil Stricklin, Chaplain, it tells his story, but also is, I think, a great opportunity for you to consider what you might want to do in your own marketplace. And of course, they have a news magazine and some other resources that you can find out by going to the web place marketplaceministries.com. We will take a break and come back with more right after this.
Now, back to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
Back for a few more minutes. We have Gil Stricklin in studio with us today, talking about his book, Chaplain, I might just mention, endorsed by people we've had on the radio program like Cliff Barrows and Johnny Erickson Tata, and the list goes on and on. Not to mention the fact that if this book came out a few years ago, one of your closest friends, Zig Ziglar. We've always enjoyed having him on the program, and you and Zig go way, way back, don't you?
Well, we really do. Zig was a dear friend, and I look forward to meeting him again in heaven. He was the guy that really encouraged me to write a book. I'm not a great writer, and this book will never be on the New York Times bestseller list. But every time we'd talk for over months and months, he'd ask me, well, have you started writing that book yet? Have you started writing that book yet? And so finally, one day I was so glad that after I told the staff I was going to take off for 3 to 6 months and try to put down in writing what God had done over the last 30 years, the miracles in the marketplace, I called Zig Ziglar, and this was after he had fallen down the steps, and
right.
it was really kind of in pretty bad shape. But that day, his wife answered the phone, and the little redhead said, well, would you like to talk to Zig? And I said, I'd love to. And so he gets on the phone. He said, this is Zig Ziglar. He has a beautiful redheaded wife. And I said, Zig, this is your friend Gil Stricklin. Before you ask me, I just want to tell you, I have started writing that book. And he said, great. I want to be the first guy to read it. And I said, okay, you've got it. You'll be the first guy to read it. And between that time and me finishing it up, they needed a great motivational speaker in heaven. And so the good Lord called him home.
And let's, if we can, just real quickly talk about the international expansion, because you have that in the book as well. And that is, I think, encouraging. You've had the opportunity to take this, I hope, to Taiwan, to Singapore. Tell us what's happening there.
Well, Kerby, we've got 4 separate 501c3 organizations. One, Marketplace Chaplains USA, Marketplace Chaplains International, Railroad Chaplains specializing in working with railroads, and then the Marketplace Ministries Foundation. In the international work, we've only been doing this since 2005, so it's not real old, but the Lord has blessed that. The first place we went to was Central America, which is Mexico, and we've got several companies there. Then we went to the United Kingdom, and both in England and in Scotland, we've got companies there. And then the fastest growing international marketplace has been Canada. Of course, they're so very similar to us.
Yes.
But we have a lot of companies in Canada, and that's growing very rapidly. But then we began to say, God, where else could we go? Where else would you like for us to go? And we had 27 Chinese business people come to Dallas, and we hosted them, and for Texas barbecue and cowboy hats and all that, and I just spoke to that group, and after I finished, a little Chinese lady came up to me with an interpreter, Mandarin Chinese interpreter, and she just said, with kind of tears coming down her face, she said, you must come to China. You must come to China. She said, I want to be the first company in China to have chaplains. So several years went by, but this past last 18 months, we've been developing China. And we have an office in Beijing, we have an office in Hong Kong, and also we have work in South Korea. So those 3 locations are places where we've signed contracts. Mm-hmm. We set up for-profit businesses. They don't know anything about nonprofits. And we're doing it in the legality of the law. We're not going underground. We're not trying to infringe on the government in any way. We're going in to support people. And President Xi of China has the Chinese dream. And one of the phases of 3 parts of that Chinese dream is to support people and give them a purpose for living. Well, we're going to help him fulfill that. And so we've signed contracts with both Chinese companies and international companies. And the Lord willing, by November the 1st, we will kick off a Libby Glass with 500 employees in Langfang, China, which is a suburb of Beijing. And we will have our first client in China. And we're excited about that.
Yeah, so again, some people are going to have to learn Mandarin, and those, of course, that are already there will probably be able to do so. So just very exciting things about Marketplace Ministries. But in one of the last chapters, as people read this, I think they're going to enjoy all of the book, but especially you have nuggets of wisdom. There's 7. I know we won't get to all of them, but one of them, making the priority of your life the kingdom of God and worshiping Jesus Christ. I see that running all the way through your corporation and really running through your life.
Well, I tell you what, if that's not the priority, nothing else is going to work. And, we just believe in Matthew 6:33, but seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And then the last part of that takes care of itself. And all these things, everything else will be given to you, added to you, established in you. And so it's exciting to say that we begin with Christ and we end with Christ, and everything in between is Jesus Christ. We don't apologize for that. We don't shy away from that, but we don't use our religious faith to be a religious harassment to you or anybody else. We don't judge lifestyles. We don't preach. We don't, in a sense, proselyte. We simply go to share God's love with anybody that'll listen.
One of the other wisdom comments was, pray more than anything. You can do more on your knees than you can on your feet. I think you got that advice both from W.A. Criswell and Billy Graham, so that must be a pretty good piece of advice.
Well, I tell you what, you and I both know that prayer is the greatest power we have offered to us. And, I have to admit that I do not pray enough. I need to pray more. I need to pray more by faith. It's exciting to pray and believe and trust and then see God respond. That when we pray, we open God's hands to do things that he does not choose to do when we don't pray. And so consequently, from the very beginning and certainly over the years, we have tried to put an emphasis on prayer. And we have 5 prayer warriors who are paid a salary to pray for this ministry.
That's amazing.
And we'd like to have 2,500.
Well, again, there are some great opportunities for people to connect up with you. Again, they can go to our website, pointofview.net, and we have the link there, or they can just go to marketplaceministries.com. And as they go there, there's a video. They can find out about the different aspects of that. Of course, we talked about Chaplains USA, Chaplains International, Ministries Foundation, the Railroad Chaplains, all sorts of great opportunities for you to connect up with that organization. And the new book out, Chaplain, as well as, of course, the magazine Marketplace. So some great resources, and I certainly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to, first of all, write the book, and second of all, join us today here on Point of View.
Well, you're kind, Kerby. Being a chaplain for 40 years, both in the military and in corporate America, has been the greatest joy and greatest experience that I believe anyone could have. And that was just God's divine providential will for me to lead me in this area, and it has been very exciting. Well, thanks for letting me be with you today and visit.
Well, it's certainly great to have you there. And again, those of you that are listening to this broadcast, you are located in an area where there probably is a chaplain, but you may not know about it, or there could be a business that you are a part of or a corporation that needs one. So let me encourage you to make that connection, and we've made it very easy for you by going to the website pointofview.net. Let me just also mention that we have a lot of resources in addition to the one that we're making available today. You would certainly want to get a copy of Gil Stricklin's book, but also don't forget some of the videos we've been posting. Each Tuesday we post a video, and the ones over the last couple of weeks have been on everything on the importance of voting, sex before marriage, abortion, quite a number. And if you haven't gone to our website to find those, please take the time to do so. You can go to our Facebook page by clicking on that button, and you can see the latest video we've posted there, or you can go to our YouTube channel to do that. And as you do that, let me encourage you to watch it, then hit that share button, and then put it on your own Facebook page or put it on your blog. We also, I might mention, there is a nice video that you can watch as you go to Marketplace Chaplains, and that is a place where you might want to pass that on to somebody that might need to know about that. So use these videos effectively to educate others. And if you'd like to listen to this broadcast again, you can click on the button that says podcast. Of course, you can also watch the live cast, and we encourage you to do that. Perhaps, again, you know somebody that would benefit from this conversation over this first hour. We hope that you will take the time to multiply the impact that we're having. Okay, let's take a break. And again, you can visit our website, pointofview.net. We'll have more for you right after these important messages.
In case you haven't noticed, this is not NPR. We believe in truth, that right and wrong are not just personal preferences, and we don't get corporate or taxpayer support. If you are a member of Truth Team 360, thank you. Thank you for stepping up and continuing to step up. And if you're not, please don't think, someone else will step up. Today is the day for you to step up. We need you to be a part of Truth Team 360. Visit pointofview.net/team. Choose your level of support. Choose your Truth Team gift, a tote or sport bag, whichever fits your style. Pointofview.net/team. By phone, you can give at 1-800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. Or mail that first donation to Point of View, Box 30, Dallas, Texas 75221. Box 30, Dallas 75221. Pointofview.net/team. Again, today is your day to join the team. Pointofview.net/team. Point of View will continue after this.
I just thank God for y'all. I listen to you every day, truly. I wanted to thank y'all for everything you do each day to inform Christian families and our community about the things we can do, and just the way you're so informative. I listen to you daily and love you guys and appreciate you so much.
God bless you, Kerby, for keeping this show so on track, and for the decades of wonderful help to this nation that Point of View has been. We're all big fans of your work, and we pray that God will just prosper it.
As a Christian, over the years that I've followed this program, I am constantly challenged to be on guard and to evaluate what's going on. And if for no other reason, to protect the caliber and the truth of your programming, I need to participate and to back your program financially to ensure that the truth stays out there for people to hear, to view, and to be a part of.
This is Point of View Radio.
Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. Each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging. Apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View continues right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Second hour today, we're going to spend some time talking about bullying. It's called National Bullying Month. Of course, there's all sorts of reasons to talk about it at any point in time. And we bring back to the microphone, this time in studio, Gabe Salazar. Had a chance to meet him before when he was here for an event with Just Say Yes and as one of the speakers with them. An incredible story. And last time we had you by phone, you were there at, I guess, Palos Verdes, and we were watching it on the cell phone. But nevertheless, we've got you in studio. So let me encourage individuals, if they'd like to listen to or watch the broadcast, to go to pointofview.net. Gabe Salazar is referred to as America's #1 Latino youth speaker. Yet I also would like to share a little bit of his story of being born to a teen mom, abandoned by his father, graduating from school, but now traveling the world, literally telling incredible stories. And so, Gabe, just great to have you in studio with us today.
Thank you. I have to correct you. It's the #1 Latino. Cue the maracas.
Yeah, Latino.
But that's not really just my market. I just happen to be Latino. I just happen to be, a guy that's from my community. But I think where we're reaching students on the national level, to me, it doesn't matter where you're at, where you're from. We were in a rural area, just all around the Wise County, in the Decatur area, where I think I saw a school that was 150 kids total, and that was the 5th graders, 6th through 8th, and the high school all together. And I even spoke at a school in Colorado one time to 13 kids, and that was a 6th and 8th grade. And there was one senior, and I was like, "Hey, what's up, man? All right, one senior, you're the valedictorian." And his face didn't change.
Yeah.
I said, "Come on, you're the valedictorian." He was like, "No, my grades weren't good enough." I was like, "Well, at least you made homecoming queen." I mean, at least you made homecoming king. High five, dude. Yeah. So he was funny. So I mean, sometimes I see really large groups where 2,000, 3,000, and then it doesn't matter where you're at in America. I want to inspire you.
Well, again, I just marvel at your giftedness. I've certainly enjoyed not only watching some of the videos, but had a chance to see you live. And it's just a great opportunity for, once again, to address some of the problems that young people are facing today.
Yeah.
But share briefly, because some people may remember your whole testimony, but if they don't, it is a really encouraging testimony of how you, in some respects, are a little bit of a miracle, because if somebody were to go through your background, your area where you grew up, gangs, all the other things, they'd say, don't really give you a real chance for success. And so you're kind of one of those all-American success stories in large part.
Absolutely, especially during the 80s and 90s when the gang influence was really high, and the life rate was low of expectancy for guys from my community. It was a miracle. And I really wasn't like a hardcore gang thugster. I mean, I was just a product of my community. You kind of go with the flow.
Sure.
And when I was born to a teen mom. I was abandoned by my father as a kid. And my mom and I, we lived very poor. And there was a time in our lives where all we owned was a station wagon, and we'd moved to an apartment complex. And I know what it's like to get evicted and move to another one. It's infested by cockroaches. We moved to another place. So born in San Antonio, raised in Houston. And when we were growing up in Houston, I was always trying to find my identity. Tried to be a skateboarder at one school, and I was a skater. I didn't even own a skateboard, And another place I was like, man, I'm a gangster, I'm a thug. And I used to wear all red, you know how back, you would pick a color associated with gang. And when I'm wearing all red, I don't look hardcore. I look like a Latino Grinch that stole Christmas. So it wasn't very intimidating to see this guy called Gabe Salazar back in the 80s and 90s walking down the street. But I think a lot of what I was trying to do really was find my identity.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out who I was really.
Sure.
And on most shows I can't share this, but, to be able to say that it was really the fulfillment of God in my life that was able to say, hey, before you were born, I created you. I ordained you. You might have called yourself an accident, but I created you with a purpose. And really, that's my wife and I's passion now with our ministry, to go all across America's schools, reach students, reach young people, inspire them to believe in themselves, to overcome obstacles of poverty, of gang influence, of violence, domestic abuse, or even things like what happened this week. I had a young lady message me through my Twitter at a school that I spoke at, and she says, I haven't told anybody, and I feel like I can tell you, but a month ago I was raped. So immediately we jump on board, getting the sheriff's department involved and getting a community organization involved and their counselors, and we reached to be able to save that young lady's, I believe, her life, because she was just so distraught, had not been able to tell. And these secrets, these are like ticking time bombs in the heart of a young person that sooner or later will have a very negative effect if they don't find the hope that we're taking to schools.
Let's talk about that, because you really have saved lives. There have been times, and I remember one in particular that I've heard you tell the story about, of individuals that are just convinced that it's time to end their life, but they give it maybe one more day, and then the speaker that day is Gabe Salazar.
Yeah. And it did happen that time. I was at a school.
I know.
And the intercoms came on first thing in the morning, and it said, all right, everybody, in just a few moments, prepare. You're going to be making your way to the auditorium, and we're going to have a speaker. His name is Gabe Salazar. And that's very common. And so all the kids come in, and we have a great assembly and standing ovation afterwards. And as nobody cares about who I am when I first walk into the building, but when I leave, it's like you think like a Jonas Brothers there, you know?
That's right.
And they, all around me wanting to say thank you and just express gratitude. And this one young man stood there, didn't want a picture, didn't want a handshake, didn't want a hug. He waited till everybody left, and it was me, it was the counselors and the principals and a security officer. And he came up to me, said, hey, he told me his name. He says, I'm on the wrestling team, and today I was going to kill myself.
I'll kill myself.
And he said, but when I heard that you were going to be here, because he had said, God, give me a sign. If you don't want me to kill myself, give me a sign. And when they said Gabe Salazar is here, I knew you were God's message to me.
Wow. Just a great story. I just love hearing that. And just again illustrates one of the things that you've done, of course, with our good friends at Just Say Yes. Dan Bailey's been on the program many times before. I've been on his board in the past. And I just hope that a lot of listeners will think about whether or not they could schedule you to speak in their schools or churches or other things, because we have a lot to share. And I thought when we come back from the break, let's talk about bullying, because that's one of those issues, but they all kind of come together. It used to be that we treated sex before marriage and abstinence as one issue. Drugs is a different issue. Bullying is another issue. There is a sense in which they're different, but it all kind of comes together in this real toxic mix that affects young people today. So I'm looking forward to the chance to talk about some of that with you. But again, we also encourage people to go to your website. We have the link there, gabesalazar.com. And if you'd like to laugh quite a bit and just be amazed at some of the giftedness that God has given you, you'll certainly enjoy that. And that's a way in which you can connect up with him. Of course, we have links to all sorts of other websites that will be of help to you today. So please take the time to visit the website, pointofview.net. We've already encouraged you to watch some of these videos. That's a place where you, as you watch the video, can click on the share button and send those on to others. Some of the videos we've done just in the last couple of weeks are the importance of voting. Did a whole series that have now come out on sex before marriage. We'll get into that in just a minute. The one that's out this week is on the issue of abortion and the impact that that's having. So look at some of our videos, pass them on. Look at some of Gabe Salazar's material and pass those on as well. And then we are going to open up the phones to give you a chance to join our conversation today. Perhaps you have comments about sex, drugs, bullying. We would love to hear those. And if you'd like to interact with Gabe, I know he'll be grateful to do that. He's in studio today, so in addition to listening to the program, you can also watch it. See what a good-looking fella he is. He's waving at the camera right now, so that gives you a great opportunity for you to get to know him. Let's take a break. We'll come back with more right after this.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
Is abstinence education a failure? One would certainly think so, looking at some of the statistics being printed in various newspapers. But anyone willing to dig deeper will find that these statistics are sometimes misleading. First, let's look at the overall trend. During the 1970s and 80s, comprehensive sex education was being introduced into the schools. The proponents talked about condoms and so-called safe sex. What happened during that period? Well, teen sexual activity rose and pregnancy and abortion rates reached all-time highs. In the 1990s, abstinence groups began to present a different message. The Centers for Disease Control found that sexual activity rates of high school students declined and teen abortion rates dropped over 50%. Of course, it is possible to argue that this overall correlation may not be connected, so let's look more closely at some of the numbers used to argue that abstinence education does not work. Opponents of abstinence education nearly always refer to teen birth rates rather than teen pregnancy rates. What is missing in these comparisons are teen abortions, which mask the real impact of abstinence education. Let's compare two states of similar size, Texas and New York. The state of Texas has many more teen births than the state of New York. And opponents of abstinence education use this to show that that state that does not emphasize abstinence education, New York, is doing better than the state that does, Texas. But there's something missing from these comparisons, teen abortions. In New York, 56% of pregnant teens abort their babies, while only 16% of Texas teens do so. When you compare teen pregnancy rates rather than teen birth rates, you get a much more accurate picture. What you discover is that abstinence education is working. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
At 17,000 feet on Mount Ararat lies a mystery, Finding Noah, in theaters one night only October 8th. More information at findingnoah.com.
You're listening to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
Privileged to have in studio with us today Gabe Salazar as we talk about some of the issues facing young people today. And if you'd like to join our conversation, 1-800-351-1212. Perhaps we'll get a comment from some of you that already heard him speak, or perhaps you have some questions about some of those issues. Sex, drugs, bullying. I want to spend most of my time on bullying, but the issue of sex and drugs aren't disconnected, because sometimes young people, they begin to deal with shame and guilt and frustration. They're maybe not necessarily thinking wisely, suicide. These are all issues that young people are facing that they didn't have those problems before, but they seem to have accentuated over the last few decades.
Well, I think they've obviously gotten a lot more attention, and they are all interlinked.
Yes.
When you talk about risk behavior, and that's what we kind of catalog all these things is alcohol and drugs, and some of these other, when we talk about partying and rock and roll, that kind of whole lifestyle is all associated to what we call risk behavior.
Right.
That would create a doorway and a vehicle for a student, a young man, young woman, to engage in sexual activity.
Well, and again, we have to pay attention to that. And last time we had you on, we talked about it briefly. I want to get into it more. There's different kinds of bullying. There's sexual bullying, there's physical bullying, and of course, cyberbullying. But take us through some of the things that you share when you speak to young people, especially when you're associated with Just Say Yes. What do you talk about when you get into this very difficult topic?
Well, yeah, there are many different types of bullying. Sometimes we just associate, hey, the bullying, the physical, I'm going to hit you, I'm going to beat you up, I'm bigger than you, I'm badder than you.
Right.
And you'll be surprised, some of the bullies that we've seen and we've had to work with, and you're like, okay, you're about a $1, but it's a form of nonverbal bullying. It's an isolation, and it's I'm not going to sit at your table, or you can't sit at my table. Many of this mean girl mentality that's been developed. And I know a lot of adults that are listening right now, they say the common thing that comes off of my head the first time is like, bullying, hey, look, tough it out. It's a part about being a kid. You're going to get over it. But I guarantee you get a 45-year-old good mom and dad today. You pop them in any one of our American schools and public school system today, I don't know if they would survive. I don't know if they'd survive the emotional trauma, the physical trauma, the cyber trauma, because that's another form of bullying that did not exist 10 years ago. I mean, 10 years ago, cyberbullying was not even a word. Today, it's common practice. When 80% of kids are engaging in forms of cyberbullying, these are questions that I get asked all the time. So parents ask me, Gabe, what can I do if my kid's being cyberbullied? Or my daughter, I had to pull her out and put her in a public school. I had to pull them out and put them into a homeschooling because, I can't trust these schools. So these are what we tell parents. When they are being cyberbullied, take away all social media activity. You need to suspend every form of social media activity because, and a kid's going to go crazy being, I can't get on my Facebook. But when we hear from the CDC that 4,400 on average kids a year commit suicide, and a huge percentage of that is linked to bullying.
Wow.
We are the first line of defense against bullying to our kids. So we need to engage in good conversation, teaching our kids our protocol, and parents need to know the policies of their schools. A lot of parents, I ask them when they tell me about, I say, tell me about your school policies on bullying. Well, I don't know, and I know it's in the workbook or the handbook somewhere. Well, you know what? You should have known these things, and you need to know protocol of what to happen when your kids get bullied, because it is so it's like a smoke. It's a vapor. It's who are these people? Who are these kids that are telling you? Well, everybody says I'm ugly, okay, not everybody does, but let's figure out who these individuals are.
Let's talk about cyberbullying for just a minute, because one of the things that I began to be aware of is how, in many cases, as you pointed out, the bully isn't that big, tough guy that some of us might have had to deal with when we were in school. It could be somebody that's just really good with words and is able to really hurt you in very significant ways. And I didn't plan this, but I think the Holy Spirit did. My commentary today is on internet trolls. And this came from some research that was done that was republished in Psychology Today, where they were able to document by looking at 1,200 different individuals that are on the internet, those that were what you might call an internet troll. Those are the ones that jump in and say hurtful things, maybe distract a conversation. They're really trying to interrupt a conversation. They found that when you did the standard studies for psychopathy, narcissism, and sadism, that they were off the charts. As a matter of fact, if you look at the charts, and I've mentioned it, and people can go and find the link, you go, these are not just angry people. These are really disturbed people. And so when you have secular psychologists in Canada, this is where the original studies were done, saying that these are really sick people, these are not normal people, these are sadistic people, and to recognize that the internet allows them to be somewhat anonymous, you can see why cyberbullying is causing such a problem in our country today.
Yeah. Well, the danger of that in regards to teenagers is when you talk about these people with these issues, and if you relate them to what teens are going through, and then when it becomes common practice, and then a kid says, well, everybody cyberbullies.
Yes.
Everybody, trolls on the internet and says horrible things. And I know nobody's ever said anything bad about you on the internet, and nobody's ever said anything bad. I'm
both
obviously.
of us, take a number, as I sometimes say. You want to say something bad, take a number.
Oh man, I'm trying to help kids, and I get people making up fake Facebook and Twitter and Instagram accounts about me and saying horrible things about me, and so
And you're a really nice guy. And I bet your wife Nancy just hates that, right?
Yeah.
We can talk about how our wives get the brunt of some of that. Go ahead.
But I think what's really important is that taught me a lesson.
Yes.
To say that nobody is immune from getting cyberbullied. So our kids need to begin to know the policies and what to do. So contact your principals and your counselors, the authorities. A lot of there's even federal and state laws that are against bullying. So you need to know these laws. And in many different states, they vary, but they do exist.
What do you say to young people that have been facing this? Because it seems to me that, as you said to the parents, disconnect. And, of course, that sounds like punishment because even a 24-hour technology fast for some young people, they're in states of withdrawal. But what do you say to young people that start believing some of the things that have been said about them?
Almost nothing that an adult says to a kid that's being bullied at school is going to equal the weight that is being told to them in the negative perspective.
Yes.
So a kid's being told you're ugly, you're fat, you're stupid, you're too dark, you're too skinny, or all these horrible things. And then you tell your kid, baby girl, I love you. Yeah. You're so beautiful. You're God's creation. You're just a gem and a jewel. And they're like, whatever. It's interesting that when it comes from the mom and dad, it used to be that the influence of a mom and dad was so strong.
Yeah.
And now today it isn't. They are more influenced by what other kids say who have no influence and investment in their lives as the parents do. So maybe that might not be true for your home, but I hope that you would be parents that don't stop encouraging and believing and sharing words of hope. Hey, if you're a mom listening, put a nice letter in their lunchbox, put a nice letter. Sometimes what I do with my daughter, I have a daughter who struggles with depression. I'll get her phone and I will change the background on it and put a scripture or put a nice word.
Good.
And so that way, how many times does a kid look at their phone every day to see what new text that I get? But boom, she's saying a word saying, you were born with a purpose and a reason. So I think that's very important for us to do. I was at a school recently, and that was a question the girl asked me, a little 7th grade girl. And she stood up and said, sir, what do I do when the words people tell me hurt?
Yeah. What a great question.
And here we are in front of 700-800 kids. And I looked, I said, what is your name? She tells me her name. I said, when those words come, I want for you to forget those words, and I want you to listen to these words. You are beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
You are awesome. You are so incredible, and one day you are going to impact so many lives in a great way. You have a purpose. And the whole time I'm talking, I mean, it sounds very deep, but I mean, there was no guy that came up and grabbed the organ and started playing a nice hymn song. But no, you would have felt the Spirit of God just come in such a peaceful way. She was crying and crying, and other girls began to hug her. And I think the reason they did that is because they knew that was right.
They knew it was right. That's wonderful. Gabe Salazar with us. Let's open up the phones. I want to give some of you a chance to join our conversation today. Sex, drugs, bullying, alcohol, all of it fair game. But also, if you'd like to know a little bit more about him, we have a link to Gabe Salazar, also a link to Just Say Yes. And I would certainly want to encourage some of you that have any kind of influence to consider whether or not you'd like to bring him to your school or your venue, because you are certainly going to benefit a tremendous amount from some of his wisdom and his ability to relate so well to various teenagers. And he has spent so many times now celebrating 2 millionth students reached.
Yeah.
You're just a young guy. Boy, wait.
I look young. It's amazing what cool shoes and a low V-neck and some slick back hair will do for a guy.
Yeah, that's pretty good. The #1 Latino youth speaker, and again, just an incredibly gifted individual. And if you'd like to join our conversation today, 1-800-351-1212. Have some great links on the website today, including our video on the one on unplanned pregnancies, as well as a couple of others that we've had on abortion. And of course, you can go to his website and watch some of his videos. And we'll be back right after this.
This is an on-the-go world, and now wherever you go, Point of View goes with you. Visit the Apple or Google Play Store and download the free Point of View app. You can listen and watch the program live or play it again later. Get Kerby's Viewpoints commentary and click the Take Action link to make a difference in the world. You can also read articles, find a local radio station, and easily contact us with your comments or questions. Again, visit the Apple or Google Play Store today and get the app, the Point of View radio app. And one more thing, if you like it, click that button that says Donate Now and join the team. Point of View and the Point of View app, with you on the go.
At 17,000 feet on Mount Ararat in eastern Turkey.
We see it in every culture. The flood was a common story told, and there was an ark that saved humankind.
Lies a mystery that could change the way we look at the world.
Let's go find an ark.
Presented as a Fathom event, Finding Noah, an adventure of faith.
We knew we were on the brink of what could be the greatest archaeological discovery so far.
Witness the journey. Finding Noah. One night only, October 8th in theaters nationwide. FindingNoah.com.
Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Final half hour, we'd like to join our conversation today. We're talking about some of the issues the teens are facing. And if you would like to join the conversation, add your perspective or ask a question, we'd love to hear from you. 1-800-351-1212. Have a link to GabeSalazar.com, but we also have a link to JustSayYes.org. I noticed when I went there that later this month you got Red Ribbon Week. Actually, that's a tongue twister. You want to say that real close and safely, Red Ribbon Week. But that it gets into the whole issue of drugs, right? Doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And so we'll go to schools, and there's a week that's designated to drug prevention in the state of Texas, especially all over the U.S., but more specifically, it's really big here in Texas, and that's dedicated to a DEA agent who was killed in the line of duty.
Wow.
And so I think that must have been 15 years ago plus, maybe, or something like that. And so then now we go and we encourage students to stay away from drugs and alcohol. And they don't, when I say alcohol, they're like, alcohol, that ain't no drug. No, it's the biggest drug across America that's killing more kids than any other drug. And it's illegal under the age of, and you'll be surprised how many times it get 18.
Yeah.
18. Okay, you be quiet.
21.
21. And we've had students in the schools that we worked with that have died as a result. I've been to schools that a kid died the weekend of, and one time I was at a school and the principal said, can the girl who died, can her friends that were in the car with her go up there with you? And they came up with neck braces and leg braces and they were just crying. And they really didn't have to say much to get the message across to their kids to say, hey, please don't drink. Please don't drink and drive. Be smart about your actions. But you know what? Had I been there the Friday before, I only wish that I could have been in the school to help and share the message before it's too late.
Yeah, I know. Drinking and driving, texting and driving, all this risk behavior. That gets me into a question I'd like to focus on for a few minutes, and that is how technology has really changed the teen world. Because it used to be that if you were bullied in high school or middle school, at least you could get away from the bully when you went home. Now, there's the possibility that you could still be cyberbullied. It used to be that if you were maybe having difficulty and you didn't want to connect up with somebody, you at least could come back to the refuge of your bedroom, but they're bothering you on your Facebook page. Used to be that if you wanted to get pornography, you had to go to a very dark section of the city or the town and bring it back.
Or an uncle's garage. Come on,
or something like that. Yeah. Now it's just a mouse click away. Young people are facing much greater challenges because of technology, aren't they?
They are. And what we say now is you don't have to go looking for pornography. Pornography will come looking for you.
Yes.
And that's where a lot of our kids are being so inundated with sexual images. They're calling Snapchat, they don't call it Snapchat anymore, they call it sex chat, because there's so many sexually explicit images that are being transferred. And kids are, I did some work with an organization called ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children, there in Los Angeles. And we did some busts on houses, and we go after some of these individuals who are sharing child pornography, and finding out some of these individuals are actually children themselves. And so there's a girl that was sharing pictures with her boyfriend, and the sexually explicit images, and
sexting, all that. Yeah.
And so they broke up. Boyfriend shares them with the football team. Dad shows up and it's like, hey, I want charges pressed against all these guys. All of them, press charges against them. And then they're like, yeah, we will, but we also have to press charges against your daughter for producing child pornography. And so when we talk about sexting, there's a couple of rules that I talk to parents about. One thing is you've got to set up your rules before you give the kid the phone. Because when do kids get a phone? Best two times kids get phones is birthdays and Christmas. And nobody ever wants to say, hey, Merry Christmas, Santa brought you this. But listen, he also came with some rules. And the rule is that I can take this phone back at any time if your grades drop, if you're disrespectful, if you don't do your chores. I mean, that never happens. It's, hey, open up your iPhone or open up your Samsung or whatever, and congratulations. And it isn't until later when they get the bad grade and the kid's like, oh man, you took away my phone, I hate you, and you don't love me anymore. Well, you messed up because you didn't set the ground rules before. So I want parents to understand, set those ground rules beforehand. Another thing that we encourage is what they call cell phone or technology parking lots. And every mom and dad that has teenagers or children that's listening should have a cell phone parking lot in their home, or a technology parking lot. And that's where all the phones in the whole family are placed at night. So no phones in the room. Huge percentage of kids are losing sleep at night because, when there's one 16-year-old whose mom doesn't care what time he goes to bed, And then there's another 16-year-old whose mom says, hey, you're in bed at 10 o'clock and, you finished your homework, you watched a little bit of TV, let's go to bed. They sleep with their phone underneath their pillow. And another kid at 3 a.m., he makes a comment and their phone's buzzing and the kid gets up and, of course, he's got to comment back. Oh, I'm okay, LOL, or whatever he puts, right? And now his sleep is disrupted.
Yes, sir, it is.
And so it is going to affect his grades. It is going to affect his performance on the field or him or her, whatever it is. It changes their sleeping patterns. So also, more typically than not, who gets up first in the morning at a house? Well, the mom does or the dad does, but that gives them a chance to monitor the phones and be like, who's texting you at 3 a.m. or what are they saying or what are they sending? Maybe they're being cyberbullied and the mom doesn't know it because they're hiding it. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they're being sexting. They're having sexting images sent to them and they're not sharing it. So now they're able to monitor that. I think that's very important. Also, I encourage that parents have in our home, and you can't have the password, Kerby, but in our home, we all share the same password for all of our social media devices.
That's so smart.
So that way I know what you're on. And you know what? Even as parents, hey, you can go on mine too. I'm not hiding anything from you. You know my password, so I should know yours too. Yeah. And when I say this often, that parents are the first line of defense. That is a great line of defense of saying, hey, you're not going to like me, but these are the rules of our house. And you don't know how many parents after churches and after youth programs or after schools that I've spoken and shared that message, they come to me and say, thank you for affirming that. That has changed the dynamic of our home.
A couple of good rules. First of all, one, and that is, as you just mentioned a minute ago, set the ground rules before you give the phone or before you have access to the laptop, computer,
Absolutely.
Whatever it is. So that's the first one. I love the second one, and that is this idea of a phone parking lot, because that eliminates a lot of those late night texts and the questionable kind of comments and all the rest. I've said sometimes that you should be your child's Facebook friend, because then you can see what's being said there. But it brings to another principle that we need to communicate to our kids, and that is, you know as well as I do, the younger you are, the less likely that prefrontal cortex up there that makes good decisions is fully formed. So young people don't think about the fact that something they produce on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, chat, whatever, is going to
be out there forever. And fill in the blank, because that's the problem is these young girls, they say, well, I'll send some sexually explicit pictures to my boyfriend. They have no idea that they'll show up later on. They have no idea that something they put on Facebook later on will be looked at somebody in human resources determining whether or not they're going to hire you for a job. Certainly. And that's another reason for our cell phone parking lots and our technology parking lots. And, when students take their iPads and technology is fabulous. It is a wonderful tool that has helped so many students in the educational environment. Absolutely. But I do encourage parents, when these kids take their phones and they take their iPads and such to their rooms, you got to have the doors open. Many times it starts very innocently that a young man or young lady will be, hey, am I chatting with my friend? And Kerby, you and I would never allow for my teenage daughter to have a little boy in her room, late at night or any of the day, actually. They can't go to her room, period. Yes. You hear me? Okay. Yeah. So, but, with technology, it allows virtually for a young man to be in the room or a young woman to be in the room. And it starts very innocently where they're there and they're like, oh, do you like my new outfit? This is my school outfit and look at what I'm wearing. And this is in accordance to stories that we've heard from parents and teens. So then they'll start just showing outfits. And then next time it's, I just got out the shower. Give me a second. And it's still rolling. And the next time it's like, oh my God, check out my abs and look at me in my bikini and my bathing suit. And it just spirals downhill from there. And before you know it, they're sharing stuff. And all it takes, Kerby, is somebody on the other side of that camera to hit record. Yep. And they're recording exactly what they're doing in the nude. And it might be with permission. It might be without permission. And like you said, that stuff is out there forever. So parents, I'm not trying to scare you, but I'm trying to scare you into knowing that this stuff does happen. I don't care what school you're at, urban, rural, country, private, Christian, it doesn't matter. This is happening in America's schools, and it's very common. And kids would roll their eyes saying, oh, no, not me. That's my friend who does that, but not me.
Yeah, but again, just a real change in technology. We've talked about this before. I remember when I used to speak on media before we had all this, we just said evaluate the location of your television set, evaluate the quantity and quality of your media input. But now we're in a situation where they're carrying things in their palm that can do a great deal of damage and also connect them up to some very dangerous places. We love the internet, and the information superhighway is a wonderful device, but there are some really dark back alleys, and so those are some other warnings we need to give to our children. And so let's take a break. If you'd like to join us, 1-800-351-1212. Gabe Salazar with us, and we encourage you to find out more about him. We also have links to his website, Just Say Yes, and all sorts of resources, all of them available on our website today, pointofview.net. Let's take a break. We'll come back with more right after this.
Now, back to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
Back for a few more minutes with Gabe Salazar, and if you'd like to join us, 1-800-351-1212. We're talking about some of the challenges of youth, and you've got some great illustrations and principles. Parents need to figure out a way to control the technology. There was a sense in which when, especially the previous generations were growing up, there were some cultural influences that were kind of keeping the family together, and there are certainly some ways to prevent some of the outside influence. But now with these technologies, if you don't have a at least an 8-hour fast. If you don't park your cell phone or your iPad or whatever it might be, this 24/7 kind of almost news cycle is the thing that can really entice your kids away from some of the values that you as a parent have. And I know that as a father of 4 children, you understand that only so well, don't you?
Yeah, well, people are like, wow, these are incredible principles, and these are wonderful things that you've developed or you've found along the way, and now you get to share. And well, some of these, as we were talking during the break, are as a result of cause and effect in our home. I mean, don't think that some of those. Just because Gabe Salazar is a national youth speaker and a top youth speaker for Latinos, and that we don't have a bullseye on our back.
Yeah.
And things aren't attacking us. And so we do, but we never give up on our kids. We are still telling our kids all the time we love them, we believe in them. And my son right now, who's 16, Mark, he is in a John Hagee has a school
San Antonio.
in San Antonio.
Yes.
And he's in the internship program there called Impact Now. And he's in the worship team, and he's traveling. In fact, I think right now he's in Galveston with the traveling team doing ministry.
Oh, so again, some great opportunities there. But let's, if we can, for just a minute, find out about how people can connect up with you. We've got the link to Just Say Yes. We have the link to your website. But what I want to encourage people to do is to figure out how they might be able to intercede and to prevent some of these tragedies that we all hear about in the local news because somebody drank too much and killed themselves, somebody committed suicide, kids were being bullied and they were depressed, or whatever it might be. There are some great ways that you can come to a public school, speak to these issues, and really begin to change the mindset of some of these young people.
Absolutely. I think the best way is through partnerships.
Yes.
Every community is facing something different. And even though they're all kind of facing the same things, some things are more prevalent than others, whether it's dropout or drugs or whether it's apathy. And so one great way is partnering. So I get a chance to partner with organizations across the U.S. or faith-based organizations, or sometimes churches will partner with us and saying, hey, Gabe, we're going to sponsor you to go to a local school. And then we don't want to convert these kids afterwards. We just want them to let them know we're here and we love them. So we're going to set up some inflatables, have some pizza and soda, and we're going to have a cool concert. And so we're able to do that, and we reach kids' lives. And you'll be surprised how many individuals who would never enter a church or a church parking lot, or even sometimes it's just in the after-school gym. It's in the gymnasium sponsored by Fellowship of Christian Athletes or another organization of the like. And we get a chance to interact with them in a really cool way that tells them a little bit deeper about why it is that I am the way that I am. I mean, it's not like an energy drink that makes me like this. It's God that did something in me like this. If you would have known me, 20 years ago, it's not the same person. I was very talkative, but in a negative way. I'd put people down. I'd discourage people. I was the bully. I was making fun of people. And a lot of that was because of the insecurities that I had within myself, because I knew how poor I was. I knew that my dad didn't want me so much that I didn't even have his name on my birth certificate. I mean, I was counted out before that. And so I would find ways to kind of lift myself up by putting people down. But today I get to use that same gift that God gave me to encourage and make others believe in themselves.
One of the questions I'm sure a lot of people would ask is, well, can I bring in somebody like Gabe Salazar into the public schools? Am I going to hear people like people for the separation of church and state, ACLU, and others say, oh, well, we can't have this guy? What about that?
Well, no, actually, my work is designed as a school-based program, and so that's actually I don't get a lot of conversation like that. I get the other conversation. I get a lot of Christians that when they book me for Christian camps, they go, "Hey, I went to his website. I didn't see anything about God. I didn't see a cross on his website, or I didn't see a little fishy thing. What's up with that?" And well, it's designed so administrator and would feel safe in knowing, hey, he's not going to come and evangelize. Right. He's not going to come and talk about well, you and I both know. I mean, people ask me, is it faith-based? Well, I believe everything I do is faith-based.
Of course it is.
Everything I do, because it's of the basis of why I do what I do, is because God loved me so much, and I want to share that love with others. And so there's no danger in that. We've actually, with our work with Just Say Yes, we have a really strong reputation in schools across America. So when we say Just Say Yes to schools, or even Gabe Salazar, to some degree, people already know, I've heard of that guy, or I think I know somebody that's heard of that guy, and he's got a great rapport and reputation on the internet as a school speaker. I would love, except for that one guy that's been trolling on him. No, yeah. But it's probably the same guy that's trolling on us both.
Probably, yeah.
But we've got a great rapport. And so sometimes people ask me, well, who's the person that gets you into school? Is it the administrator? Is it the superintendent?
Yeah, that's a
Is
question.
it the pastor from the community? You know what? It's all of those.
Of the above.
Sometimes it's a grandma that has such influence. I mean, her influence is stronger than the superintendent. She tells me, Gabe, I want you to come to my school this Thursday, to my middle school. And I'm like, yeah, can we get the superintendent in on this conversation? No, I'll tell him later. You come right now. And so, sure enough, funny? I mean, the red carpet's rolled out. They have so much respect for that lady and that individual. So maybe that person is listening right now, and you can make a difference in your community by us going and sharing a bully prevention message, a drug and alcohol prevention, a message of hope to tell kids to never give up.
Now, I got to ask you at least one question I asked you last time. Book. I would love to see this Gabe Salazar book, and you said you were working on it, so where are we on that?
Well, Dan Bailey and I partnered with an individual. And so we're working on developing this book right now. It's called Born on Accident, Living with Purpose.
Yes.
And so I know nobody's born on accident. I get that sometimes. Like somebody says, sir, nobody can actually be born on accident. You know that. Okay, I know nobody goes to the hospital and is like, oh my gosh, I thought it was a bad burrito. It ended up being a boy. That's a Lion King reference.
Lion King. Yep, I got it.
But I have actually kids have named the book. Kids would come to me and tell me, hey, sir, I heard your message and I'm born on accident too. My dad didn't want me, or I'm a foster kid, or whatever it is that their story is. And so that's one thing that's really cool. So it's being designed as a little work booklet that we're able to take to schools and help me pray about this book, of getting it materialized as soon as possible, because so many kids need to read this book.
Let's take a quick phone call. Shelby, what would you like to share with us today?
Yeah, I'd like to see more people holding teachers and parents accountable for bullying in the halls and in the rooms of the schoolroom, because there's a lot of that going on. I've seen it.
Yeah, let me give you a chance to respond real quick.
Yeah, Shelby, you're absolutely right. It does happen. And, one time my son was bullied by his teacher. I got him a little faux hawk haircut. He was this is my 16-year-old son. He was about 9 at the time, and he had a little faux hawk. The little,
I know
and
what
it
you're
was
talking about.
cute. Okay, you want it, go ahead. And he his grades are good. He was so respectful, and everything was great. So and he's walking down the hallway smiling, and a teacher looks at him and says, "Hey, why are you smiling like that? The only time you should smile like that is when you look in the mirror, because you look ridiculous."
Oh.
I went to school, and I just came with there
can see it in your eyes right now.
Pitchforks and torches, and I brought the lady in. I said, so you said that to my son? Yeah. Sometimes I say things in a jokeful way. I said, well, you became the topic of our dinner conversation, and we did not appreciate that. And I think it's interesting. I told her that. And where'd you go to college at? And she told me. And I said, it's interesting. You went to college. You spent about $60,000 to come to school and insult a kid and make him feel bad. I said, you must feel really good about yourself. you know who started crying then?
Yeah,
it was that teacher.
Yeah, for sure.
And I said, look, I didn't come here to make you feel bad, but I came here to let my son know that I care about him.
Great way to end the program today. Gabe Salazar. Find out more on our website, pointofview.net. And of course, you can also go to Just Say Yes. I want to thank Andrew, Catherine, and Chris for their help behind the scenes. Have a great day, and we will see you back here tomorrow.
This is an on-the-go world, and now wherever you go, Point of View goes with you. Visit the Apple or Google Play Store and download the free Point of View app. You can listen and watch the program live or play it again later. Get Kerby's Viewpoints commentary and click the Take Action link to make a difference in the world. You can also read articles, find a local radio station, and easily contact us with your comments or questions. Again, visit the Apple or Google Play Store today and get the app, the Point of View radio app. And one more thing, if you like it, click that button that says Donate Now and join the team. Point of View and the Point of View app, with you on the go.
At 17,000 feet on Mount Ararat in eastern Turkey.
We see it in every culture. The flood was a common story told, and there was an ark that saved humankind.
Lies a mystery that could change the way we look at the world.
Let's go find an ark.
Presented as a Fathom event, Finding Noah, an adventure of faith.
We knew we were on the brink of what could be the greatest archaeological discovery so far.
Witness the journey. Finding Noah. One night only, October 8th in theaters nationwide. FindingNoah.com.
Point of View is produced by Point of View Ministries.
I just thank God for y'all. I listen to you every day, truly. I wanted to thank y'all for everything you do each day to inform Christian families and our community about the things we can do, and just the way you're so informative. I listen to you daily and love you guys and appreciate you so much.
God bless you, Kerby, for keeping this show so on track and for the decades of wonderful help to this nation that Point of View has been. We're all big fans of your work, and we pray that God will just prosper it.
As a Christian, over the years that I've followed this program, I am constantly challenged to be on guard and to evaluate what's going on. And if for no other reason, to protect the caliber and the truth of your programming, I need to participate and to back your program financially to ensure that the truth stays out there for people to hear, to view, and to be a part of.
This is Point of View Radio.